Karoline Leavitt, his press secretary, the woman who keeps insisting Trump didn't draw this or sign this in 2003, she was 5 years old. She was too young even for Jeffrey Epstein in 2003. But she knows. He knows. They're all... I love that these people are so certain he didn't do this.
With all due respect to former President Obama, he has no idea what he's talking about. The decision to fire Jimmy Kimmel and to cancel his show came from executives at ABC. That has now been reported, and I can assure you it did not come from the White House, and there was no pressure given from the President of the United States. And how do I know that, Kaylee? Because I was with the President of the United States when this news broke in the United Kingdom.
Jimmy Kimmel looked straight into the camera, played a clip of the president gushing about his 28-year-old press secretary's lips, and asked the one question any normal workplace would probably ask: does the White House have HR? That was basically Jimmy Kimmel's entire point, all in one line. It's funny because it's true, and brutal because it's so obvious. The joke didn't need fancy editing or some big gotcha interview. It just needed Trump's own words, a studio full of people collectively wincing, and a desk anchor who knows exactly how to turn that feeling of this is not okay into a laugh that sticks with you until morning.
I answer this. I didn't realize she'd be in the room, but she's on my list. Karoline Leavitt.
She's become a star. It's that face, it's that brain, it's those lips, the way they move like she's a machine gun. Is she in the room?
She's in the room.
She's a star, and she's great. She's a great person, actually, but she's, I don't think anybody has ever had a better press secretary than Karoline. She's been amazing.
If you support Jimmy Kimmel, subscribe to the channel and tell me one quality you like most about him. Because honestly, we're all Jimmy Kimmel. Now let's rewind about 30 seconds before that laugh. The setup was simple. The president was on Air Force One, praising Karoline Leavitt in a way that sounded more suited to a Maxim cover shoot than a press briefing. He said he'd never replace her and even marveled at how her lips move like a machine gun. Kimmel didn't need to exaggerate any of it. He just played the quote, paused long enough for the audience to sit with that secondhand embarrassment, and then delivered the punchline with that completely deadpan style.
Like immediately, is that right? How's Karoline doing? Is she doing good? Should Karoline be replaced?
No. That's up to you, sir.
It'll never happen.
Nobody wants to. I say she does a great job. Do you want to elaborate on the
And those lips, they move like a machine gun, right?
Do you want to elaborate on the...
Does the White House have HR? The room broke because that's the one thing this White House never seems to plan for: an adult in the building whose job is to say, "Sir, no." That's the moment Kimmel exposed on live TV. Not because he uncovered some secret, but because he cut straight through the spin. In just 2 beats, he made the power imbalance impossible to ignore. A 70-something boss objectifying a 20-something subordinate on government time, on a government plane, as if basic dignity were optional and boundaries were something only interns had to worry about.
Donald Trump actually said our new military will bring back new focus on fitness. I love the idea that Trump is lecturing these guys on fitness. I mean, if that isn't the fondue pot calling the kettle fat, I don't know what is. Listen up, generals. I want to make something very clear. The Pillsbury Dope president wants you to do Pilates. The only push-ups Donald Trump does are from the side of an ice cream truck. If you get so fat you start breaking escalators, you are unfit to serve in the military.
You know, I don't really know how much he weighs. I can tell you one thing, that if you would ask me what should you do for fitness, I would just say run around yourself 3 times. You're gonna be in great shape. You know?
Late night is at its sharpest when it puts something completely ridiculous right next to what normal actually looks like. Everyone watching can feel which side of that split screen they're on. Everyone recognizes that office guy who talks about women's bodies like it's somehow part of his personality. And everyone knows exactly why HR exists. But if you want to understand why Karoline Leavitt was already a TV story before Kimmel even touched that clip, you have to go back to one earlier broadcast moment, June 24, 2024, live on CNN.
Proved that the Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. That is who the Democrat Party is catering to, not the Trump administration and not the White House and not the Republican Party, who is standing up for law-abiding Americans, not just across the country, but around the world. And that's...
Fantasy is more powerful than reality in this MAGA sphere we live in, which meant it was time for our commander in cheeseburger to weigh in on one of the most pressing issues our military faces today. Unattractive.
Karoline, who was a campaign spokeswoman at the time, sat down for an interview and decided to go after the network's moderators instead of actually answering the questions. Casey Hunt cut her off in the middle of the attack and ended the segment right there on air. That moment spread everywhere, from morning shows to panel discussions, and kicked off a whole week of people asking, "Are we really doing this?" That clip became the origin story for why Leavitt turned into such a regular character in the news world. She was a messenger who treated media appearances like they were cage matches.
Karoline Leavitt, who's sick, she's out of control. And I'm not sure whether she's just demented, ignorant, a stone cold liar, or all of the above. But the notion that an official White House spokesperson would say that the Democratic Party consists of terrorists, violent criminals, and undocumented immigrants. This makes no sense. That this is what the American people are getting from the Trump administration in the middle of a shutdown. So their actions continue to speak for themselves, which is why they're on the wrong side of public sentiment. Thanks. Yeah.
And he's already figured out where to get the money. Trump today became the first president to sue the New York Times. He's suing the New York Times for $15 billion for defamation. $15 billion. Where does he even come up? These are like numbers my children make up when they're talking about money. I thought he said the New York Times was failing. He thinks they have $15 billion?
Fast forward to 2025, and she's now the face of the briefing room, while the White House's most powerful man can't seem to stop talking about her appearance. Kimmel didn't create that storyline, he just made it clearer. She's not simply a spokesperson spinning the news. She's a woman in her 20s being publicly objectified by the boss who hired her, and somehow the country is expected to act like that's charming. And this is where Kimmel really earns his keep as an editor, not just a comedian. He knows the easy move would be to go after Leavitt herself, replay her old attacks, bring up the CNN cutoff, and turn all of that into another joke. But he doesn't take the bait. He aims higher.
House Press Secretary apparently inadvertently admitted that Tom Homan was in a meeting with undercover FBI agents. She made that admission yesterday when she got carried away in saying something that no one else has said. She claimed Mr. Homan never took the $50,000.
Did the president ask the Justice Department to close the case and does Homan have to return the $50,000?
Well, Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight, number one. Number two, this was another example of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice against one of President Trump's strongest and most vocal supporters in the midst of a presidential campaign. You had FBI agents going undercover to try and entrap one of the president's top allies and supporters, someone who they knew very well would be taking a government position months later. Mr. Homan did absolutely nothing wrong.
It's about a workplace culture being set by the person at the very top. So when Kimmel asks whether the White House has HR, he's not scolding a staffer, he's going after the manager. That's why the joke works across politics. You don't have to hate the administration to understand that a president praising a subordinate's lips like he's narrating a calendar isn't governance. It's basically a walking HR training video. And it fits a bigger Kimmel pattern that's been especially brutal on Trump in 2025. Play the tape, show the receipts, and then ask one completely normal world question.
Trump announced the suit this morning. He wrote, "Today I have the great honor of bringing a $15 billion defamation and libel lawsuit against the New York Times, one of the worst and most degenerate newspapers in the history of our country. The Times has engaged in a decades-long method of lying about your favorite president, me, my family business, the America First movement, MAGA, and our nation as a whole. The New York Times has been allowed to freely lie, smear, and defame me for far too long, and that..."
After his surprise suspension in September and quick reinstatement, Kimmel came back with a vengeance, but he seemed less hungry for applause and more focused on the receipts. He's been calmer than the firestorms happening around him, and somehow that makes the hits land even harder. And because Trump and the people around him just can't resist clapping back, Kimmel's one-liners keep turning into two-day stories, which is basically the exact opposite of what any professional communications team would want when the boss has just said something wildly inappropriate.
President has been hard at work coming up with all sorts of nonsense to distract us from the Epstein files, including, I don't know if you saw this, but he made a major announcement I am ordering my administration to declassify and release all government records related to Amelia Earhart, her final trip and everything else about her. Thank you for your attention.
So first of all, who told her that Mr. Homans never took the $50,000? Who told her that? Was it Mr. Homans? He has not dared to say that himself, and no one else has dared to say that. But what you saw there, in her frenzied attempt to claim that Tom Homan never took the $50,000, she actually just said, quote, "You had FBI agents going undercover to try and entrap one of the president's top allies and supporters," end quote. So there you have the president's press secretary admitting that Tom Homan was in a meeting with undercover FBI agents. That's the White House confirming at least that fact. That's the White House officially confirming that Tom Homan was in a meeting with undercover FBI agents.
One important guardrail here, because rumor farms love a storyline like this. Kimmel did not kick Karoline off his show. She was never a guest. There was no live confrontation backstage, no walk-off, and no lawsuit drama. What actually happened was much simpler, and honestly, more powerful. A late-night monologue reframed the whole dynamic for millions of viewers by using the president's own words against the image he was trying to project. In media terms, that can be far more damaging than some backstage fight. A scuffle is just a clip. A frame becomes a habit. And once that frame sticks, you're left with the image of a boss talking about his press secretary like some guy at a bar.
Trump says the Times is run by a bunch of lefties. He claims they're a mouthpiece for the Democrats. And I have to say, I did do today's Wordle, and I don't know if you did, but he might be right. Besides how ridiculous it is, this might be one of the funniest legal documents I've ever seen. It's quite a tongue bath. One page lists Trump's, quote, hundreds of history-making media appearances, including WrestleMania 5, All My Children, Ghost Can't Do It, 2 Weeks Notice, Days of Our Lives, Miss USA, Miss Universe, The Ali G Show, Marmalade, and much.
House leadership takes a swing and calls Leavitt's rhetoric sick or demented, and the whole story circles right back to the boss who rewards it. Karoline fires back, the culture war lights up, and once again, the story comes back to the boss who seems to like his press secretary most when she becomes a tabloid character. It's like gravity. Every orbit comes back to the center. And here's your first nudge. If you've got a favorite Kimmel line from this week, whether it's HR, weirdest thing I'll ever see, or the follow-up about Air Force One being Mouth Force One, drop it in the comments so we can stitch together the tightest cold open for the short.
It's important to try to put things in perspective. Last time my 8-year-old Billy we're laying in bed, and he told me that in 5 billion years, we're all gonna die. The human race is gonna be gone because the Earth is gonna be consumed by the sun. And I was like, what? And I asked Alexa, I said, is that true? And she said, yeah, it is true. And you know what? Maybe we shouldn't worry so much, right, Guillermo?
Yes, yeah.
Maybe that's the moral to the story. Let's just be thankful that we are in the strong, capable, darkly bruised baby hands of the orangutan in the Oval Office.
And hit subscribe if you want the final cut the second we post it. Part of the reason this landed so hard in the room is that Kimmel's audience understands office life. They know that uncomfortable laugh, and they know why I'll never replace her doesn't sound like much of a compliment when it's coming from the most powerful boss on earth and it's being said about the youngest face on his senior staff. Strip away the titles and translate it plainly. My subordinates' looks are part of her value to me, and I'll keep her because of that. That's not mentorship. That's basically a billboard telling everyone to report to HR.
Any we may have heard of, by the way? 7 wars. Last week it was 10 wars. Now it's 7. Tomorrow it'll be 15 wars. This guy is ending. He ended Star Wars. I don't know if you heard that. He did. Poor Mark Hamill had to move on to other things. Listen, I have an idea of how you can get people to stop talking about releasing the Epstein files. Release the Epstein files.
It also forces a more uncomfortable question for the White House. What exactly is Karoline Leavitt's job supposed to be? In the clean version, a press secretary stands at the podium, defends policy, explains the facts, and takes the heat so the president can pretend he's above the fight. But in this version, she becomes a prop in the president's running commentary about himself. The joke basically writes itself because, honestly, it isn't even a joke. You can't go into the briefing room at 2 p.m. and fight for credibility when your boss turned you into a meme at 11 that morning. Kimmel's audience doesn't need a politics lecture. They just need someone to hit the pause button and let them actually look at what happened. And that's exactly what he does.
There's this video of what seemed to be garbage bags being thrown out of the window of the Lincoln bedroom. That's the White House. The official response from the White House said it was maintenance work being done while Trump was off on one of his many golf weekends. But Trump is even contradicting his own White House now.
There's a video that is circulating online now of the White House where a window is open to the residents upstairs and somebody is throwing a big bag out the window. Have you seen this?
There's another reason that HR line had so much reach. It completely sidestepped the same old late night as partisan argument. That whole debate disappears when the joke is basically workplace compliance 101. The target isn't conservative politics. It's the idea that normal rules somehow stop applying once you're inside the protected circle of power. Kimmel's point is simple. The closer you get to the nuclear codes, the stricter the rules should be, not looser. And the crowd agreed because, honestly, the real world agrees.
Our president is scheduled for his annual checkup tomorrow at Walter Reed Hospital. This will be his second yearly checkup this year. He had one 6 months ago, but it feels like it's been a year, so they decided to do it again. And it's smart to do this sort of thing before Halloween. If he gets a clean bill of health, he can continue his annual tradition of eating all Eric's trick-or-treat candy. Checkup will take place in the morning tomorrow, but the White House has already released the results. He is 7'2", 180 pounds, and his erections can deadlift a Cybertruck. So